This is the Saturday Morning Serial Podcast.
Hello nerds, coming to you from a galaxy far, far away a long time ago. It's Saturday Morning Serial Podcast. I'm Mike Simic, here with my girlfriend and co-host Amanda Ann, and today we are going to be discussing Obi-Wan Kenobi, which has just completed its 6-episode run on Disney Plus. You can now stream it. So Obi-Wan Kenobi is, of course, starring Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan Kenobi himself, and Hayden Christensen returning to the role of Anakin Skywalker and Darth Vader. We're going to be joined by 2 special guests today. My actress friend, very talented, Marshall, is here. And my brother-in-law and his history teacher, historian, world traveler, Chris, is here to talk with us. So let's get into it.
All right, and I want to welcome back Saturday Morning Serial fam Marshall back to the podcast, and big fan of Star Wars. And Marshall, you like Ewan, right? That's your favorite actor?
Yes, I love Ewan. I love Ewan McGregor very, very much.
Yeah.
My love of Ewan McGregor actually started with Star Wars.
That's awesome. And we have a new fam, Chris, on, and Chris is one of the biggest Star Wars fans we know.
Hey,
so
everyone.
Glad to have you on, Chris. So excited, and let's get started on our discussion. Mike, kick us off.
So let's talk about the show fitting into canon, and if this was something that you necessarily felt was needed, because I know a lot of people complained about, like, when the Han Solo movie came out, like, is this necessary? We already know how this ends. Like, Chris and Marshall, was this something that you felt you needed to see? And after having watched it, do you felt it earned its place in Star Wars canon?
It was something I wanted to see. I don't know if I absolutely needed it, but it was something I wanted. I was always really curious about how Obi-Wan spent his time in the years between bringing Luke and Leia to the Organas, and then Luke's aunt and uncle, and then, the start of episode 4. Like, what happened? What did he do with his time? So it's really cool to see the adventures and what he got up to.
Yeah, I think I was kind of in the same boat of, do I need it? But I definitely wanted it. I think for the basis of the story for me, I know, like, there were some questions that I've always had between episode 3 and A New Hope of Anakin, Darth Vader, who he was, and then Obi-Wan and where he is at that point. I felt like there was enough. I mean, you have 19 years between, him becoming Darth Vader and, the final confrontation on the Death Star. And so, I felt like there was definitely something to be told there. I wasn't sure how it was going to be played out. And I will just say I was happy. I was very happy with what I ended up seeing. And I'm sure we'll get further into that.
So my old boss he's such a Star Wars fan. My God. And Chris, you've been to my old place of employment, and it's like
yes.
a comic book shop. He has a flippin' like life-size Darth Vader, Boba Fett, etc. So I talked to him about this because he's a massive Darth Vader fan. I mean, he's got everything Vader. And he said that one of the good things about this show is that it kind of connects the bridge between Leia needing Obi-Wan Kenobi's help and how that kind of came out of nowhere in episodes 4, 5, and 6. And this series kind of bridged the gap between that.
I would say I think another thing that it did too, I don't want to jump ahead, but I think, talking about, things that it fulfilled and weren't maybe expecting it, is why would Leia name her son after somebody that you barely even think she knew? She names her kid Ben Solo, but now we know who he is to her. And
now I fully understand why his name is Ben.
Yeah.
Right?
I didn't think of that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, I don't want to jump ahead, but
So let's start talking about Obi-Wan's just general character arc and where we find him and his exuberant portrayal by Ewan McGregor. So um, is like Chris and Marshall, like, is Ewan McGregor like your Obi-Wan Kenobi, or are you still an original OG fan with Alec McGinnis?
Marshall, go ahead because Ewan's your guy. You can start. So
Ewan is definitely my Obi-Wan. I love McGinnis in, the original trilogy, but I find myself more drawn to the younger Obi-Wan and his state of mind. Um, and it was really cool to see how he started to have the state of mind that, McGinnis's did. But Ewan is my guy. When I think Obi-Wan, that's who I think of.
for me, when I think of Obi-Wan, I think of Seth Green and his voice of him in Robot Chicken. No, um, it's one of those things where Ewan, to me, was like Pierce Brosnan as James Bond, or you'll always think back to somebody like Sean Connery as who really
Mm-hmm.
started it. And Alec Guinness, I think, just exuded this wisdom, this age. But Ewan was never really that Jedi. He never really was meant to be that Jedi in the prequels. And so when this series came about, it felt like you were going to maybe see a little bit of that gap. Um, and trying to get that filled in. And I think they did a pretty decent job of leading you up to a point. I'm not going to, say at the very, very end because obviously, I'm sure that will be a point of conversation of, where it's going to go. But I felt like this was a transition between Episode 3 Obi-Wan and A New Hope Obi-Wan, and I think they did a really good job at that. So, for me to say who is my Obi-Wan, I cannot say. I love Ewan McGregor's performance. I love Alec Guinness's performance. I love James Arnold Taylor as the voice actor for Obi-Wan and the Clone Wars and all these other iterations too. And so there's just this wide breadth of people who have played this character. But I think Ewan, particularly in this series, did a great job of kind of bringing all of those portrayals together into one. And so I did a great job of kind of transitioning those things. And honestly, I think he was also given material to act in a way that he hasn't been able before. Particularly in the finale, I was bawling along with him at the
So were
his
you,
final
Mike?
confrontation. So it was top notch from him.
Mm-hmm.
I just remember being a child and my brother, I mean, he was so small when these movies came out in the 90s, but he latched on to these films and Obi-Wan Kenobi he really liked. So I can't see and I was kind of introduced to the movies later, the original movies, and so Ewan's kind of my first Obi-Wan. So he holds kind of a special place in my heart.
Yeah, for me, I guess Obi-Wan is just Obi-Wan. I don't particularly manifest him as one actor or another. He's always just been like this really developed character within the Star Wars universe who just really owns up to his mistakes, and the fact that we got to see sort of like the bridge between a fallen Jedi and like a wise old mentor in this series was incredible. And it was good seeing him kind of develop that, because my biggest like question of the series when it started was, okay, so we know that he's going to be on Tatooine when the show starts, and we know he's going to be on Tatooine when the show ends, and how do we create a meaningful journey where we can get him in a different place emotionally even though he's in the same spot physically. So yeah, I mean, it Obi-Wan is just Obi-Wan to me. They're all three actors are great. So let's talk about Darth Vader and Anakin Skywalker.
Oh, so good.
So I remember when a couple years ago, like Hayden Christensen, who plays Anakin Skywalker and returned as Darth Vader in the show, was talking about how he wouldn't come back as Darth Vader because he would just be a glorified body double at that point, with James Earl Jones, dubbing over his voice, and he wouldn't get a lot of face time. But for whatever reason, he decided to come back to this show. So obviously, he got some face time. He got to use his own voice. So, uh, how how perfectly does this show bridge the Anakin that we saw fall in Episode 3 and the Darth Vader that we get in Episode 4?
I want to say first, I am so happy that Hayden got to have another chance within Star Wars.
Yes.
I feel like, and it's the same thing of like Ahmed Best and Jake Lloyd and people of the prequels, that there was this harsh reaction to them that they were not given the proper chance to do what they could do. And Hayden getting to come back as Darth Vader, as Anakin in flashbacks and visions and these kinds of things. I think one, I mean, it adds credence to him showing up at the end of Return of the Jedi. It makes you add some more questions as to who's this weird old guy that Luke's talking to now on the shuttle platform. But I think Hayden knew what the story was going to be. The fact that it wasn't just going to be him behind the mask, and you would actually see him in that role. And I was just really happy to see him not only get this chance, but also the reaction that fans have been giving to him, kind of the love that he's getting again. I just think back to the footage from Celebration, the fans just going crazy for him. He's kind of getting his own redemption as a member of the Star Wars community. I'm just really happy for him in that. But I think he was phenomenal. This was a great depiction of Darth Vader. The torment, the pain, the torture, all of those things that make Darth Vader a character. He just did so well in his actions, his physical actions, and just did a really, really good job with this.
I'm right there with you. I'm ecstatic to see Hayden come back. And especially to get to see like those little flashbacks and things. It was very nostalgic for me, I'll admit it. I don't think that people realize how good of an actor he actually is, because when he did Star Wars, that was like the beginning of his career and he wasn't that great yet. So like it was the beginning, and honestly, I hate to say it because I love Star Wars so much. But the first 3 movies scripts were not fantastic.
No.
They were kind of bad. So it was, for me, like all the hate that he got that I remember back then was, for me, is attributed to he's very new, he's very green. This is his first like big thing, and then the writing wasn't great. So it's nice to see how the writing has evolved for Star Wars and how he's evolved and how wonderfully he was able to portray Darth Vader in using his own voice for certain things and then getting to see those flashbacks and him stepping back into Anakin. It was really, really wonderful to see.
Can we just talk about at the end where it's James Earl Jones's voice and Hayden's voice, like, just intermixed together during just that whole defeat and fight scene? Oh my god, like that blew my mind.
Yeah, I I'm gonna agree with Marshall on the fact that these prequel movies weren't set up to highlight great actors. George Lucas is famously a non-actor director, and most of his feedback is faster, more intense. So for these characters to be handed off to someone else and given chance to have different dialogue and to have different directors, and then to come with their own levity of having played the characters before and coming into a place where they have an understanding of what Star Wars fans are like now. Having that love was great.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about the Inquisitors. We got some. I really liked how they tied the Inquisitors back to Episode 3 and how they tied it all back into like the raid on the Jedi Temple. So how great was our antagonist this season, and her growth kind of mirroring Anakin Skywalker's in reverse.
I loved Moses' performance. Like, I actually had a dream about her the other night. Like, I was running away from her, and for me, that's solid. That's a solid antagonist. When I'm just like, if she's on my mind, I loved her performance. It was great.
She was so intense and
Yeah.
anger filled. I feel like almost every time she was on screen, she was almost stealing the show.
Yes,
Because
I
of
agree.
how wonderful she was portraying the character. And yes, she was an awesome mirror of Anakin and what he was like. And it's really funny that I've seen things online of people complaining about how emotional she was and how revenge driven she was. And then there are other memes that are like, you guys are complaining about this, but it's Anakin. So like she's supposed to, or in my head, she's supposed to be this mirror of Anakin. But you know, the difference being that, I mean, she's able to show mercy.
Yeah, I think. No, sorry. I think. Yeah, I think when things started off for the show, I was kind of hesitant. Already having been introduced to Inquisitors before, it was like, okay, here's another one. Where's she coming from? And trying to kind of figure out where it kind of fit in the timeline of Inquisitors and Rebels and Jedi Fallen Order and all these other places. The comics where we've seen Inquisitors before, and so it was kind of a little bit of a getting used to somebody new. And I really am looking forward to a time to rewatch this series just all at once to see her full character growth. Because by the end, I mean, I was right there with her in that desert when she's just breaking down, and I'm like, wow, I'm feeling it. I'm really feeling this emotion myself too. Episode 6, that was a rough episode for tear ducts for me, because I mean every performance was just on point, and Moses Ingram was knocked out of the park. All these criticisms I'm seeing of like she's a terrible actor. I'm like, Yale School of Acting, I think she knows what she's doing more than most of you people who are making comments. She was just phenomenal in everything that she did, and like I said, I think a rewatch is I'm going to really probably appreciate some of those earlier episodes a little bit more, because she just did, like you said, had this intensity, this anger, this vengeance that I wasn't expecting. And so I think it kind of took me off a little bit, but now seeing her character growth, where she started, where she ended, I think it's just going to only improve with each watch.
Yeah, I think she's a great stand-in for like the millennial generation and onward from that, just because of like the trauma that she endured at her school and how she had to like grow and cope with that, and the way she did was just like anger and fear, and she was able to grow and move past her trauma and kind of end the cycle of violence in the opposite way of Anakin. Great performance as well. I mean, she flew the Death Star down my tear duct and shot it. So
yeah, I think
yeah,
I think you brought up a really good point though too. Is just the theme of this show of dealing with trauma. Everybody, in terms of kind of our main characters, we're dealing with trauma in different forms. Obi-Wan dealing with the trauma of losing his apprentice, and Vader dealing with the trauma of what he became. Reva, her trauma and who she ended up becoming, and just how do you deal and process with that trauma, and do you take it head on? Do you recess back into yourself, and and just it really speaks to psychology in a way that, in my opinion, Star Wars really hasn't done all that much of. And when it has, fans usually give backlash because you look at The Last Jedi, So that kind of introspective factor was unique and really made this series stand out to me, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about Obi-Wan's rebel friend and in disguise Imperial officer. Is it Niche? Anyone know who else I'm talking about? His female friend who helps him.
Are you talking about Tala?
Tala.
You're talking
Tala,
about
yes.
Yeah.
Tala.
Tala.
Why
Yeah.
did I say Niche? Okay.
I don't know. That was
Maybe
Marissa
you
Alvarez.
intrigued me.
I
Okay,
mean,
let's
maybe
talk
that
about
was her
Tala.
last name.
Yeah.
I don't know. But
Um,
I loved seeing Tala. Part of why I loved this series so much is getting to see so many strong women.
Yes, me too.
The thing that Star Wars has always done well was show us strong women, and they do it even more so in this series with Tala, with Leia, with Riva. They show us these wonderful strong women, and I especially believe that of Tala, considering she was willing to sacrifice herself for the cause to make sure that Obi-Wan and Leia and everyone else were safe.
I really enjoyed how Tala told one of the stormtroopers, like, "You will call me sir," and I was like, "Come through, yes."
Yes.
See, I think one of the things with Tala that I really like too was she's another one of those redemption stories of the series. Joined the Empire thinking that it was the right thing to do, but then when she realized what it was, did something else, made a choice. And that's what Star Wars always has been. It's, the choices that you make in life and dealing with the consequences of those choices. And the choice that she made was, I am going to fight from the inside, basically, and try to help whoever I can. And I think, even the line of where, I'm blanking right now of where it came from, who said what, but where she basically said, like, no, this is who I am. This is, I've chosen this. When Riva is, when she's, saying like all this for a young girl and an old man and, all this kind of stuff, you'd give this all up. She's like, no, this is who I am. This is who I really am. And so I think seeing that, Indira Varma, just phenomenal actress anyways. And, her end, she always said that, she was upset that her end on Game of Thrones wasn't done on camera. She got to have her heroic end, on camera for this series. So, she's just another one of those standouts. And I really want, obviously we won't see anything after this point, but I would love to see her come up again in other stories, whether in book, comics, of kind of this, story of the path. Maybe she shows up in, the sequel to, Jedi Fallen Order and, Jedi Survivor, because they say if these are going to take place about the same time. So who knows, maybe, the path will be involved there and she might pop up. But she was one of those characters where I was like, oh, I wanted to see more, but, did what she needed to in the end.
So speaking of strong women, we have to talk about one of the greats, and we're talking about Princess / General Leia. Leia
Organa.
Leia Organa. Yeah, I'm blanking here. I almost said Skywalker, but yeah, let's talk about Leia Organa and just the wonderful job that this tiny little actress did.
She stole my heart.
Yeah. Give me more roles with Vivian Lyra Blair. Like, I want to see her in more things now.
I watched her portray Leia, and personally, I mean, I didn't know Carrie Fisher personally, but I think Carrie Fisher would have been proud.
Oh, yeah.
The fire
that resembled
too. And the strength for a 10-year-old. This little girl was 10, and she brought just as much fire and passion as the older actors around her. Yeah. And I think that speaks to her talent and her dedication to the role. And that makes me so happy.
Yeah, I think, from her introduction and, her at the family reception and telling off her cousin, I was like, that's Leia. That's 100% Leia. You don't need to convince me in any other way that this is going to turn into, this leader of the rebellion and, in all these different things, because she just did a phenomenal job, for a child actor, and the embrace that the fandom has given her. I feel like, kind of what was said before, I feel like the Star Wars fandom has learned a little bit from the prequel era. Some, not all, but most have learned somewhat of how to approach child actors and what they do. And she was just, and not just from her as a child actor, just as an actor in general, she did a great job. The emotion that she was able to play off with Ewan, and it was believable. It was extremely believable that these two would have that fatherly relationship kind of thing.
Grandfatherly.
Yeah, however, good
I
input there.
love that. I love that little jab she does.
Grandfather, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. I liked the arc that they gave her as well. At the beginning of it, not wanting to have anything to do with being a princess, and then at the end, she looks at her father and goes, "We're going to change things."
Yeah.
That made me really happy. It was nice to see her go from, "I don't want this," to, "Okay, fine, but we're going to do it my way."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And of course,
Yeah,
Bale just is wonderful. Like, okay, yeah, we're doing it. I agree. Like, I loved it.
Yeah.
So Chris, as a teacher, you obviously see a lot of students come in and out of your door. Like, what do you see in young children that you think gives them opportunity to grow into a leader? Like does Leia remind you of the students that you saw that would become like leaders later on in life?
Well, I think the thing that makes her stand out is she knows who she is to a degree. Obviously learning more about her real parents from Obi-Wan, and another moment of tears from there of Obi-Wan telling these are the things that you got from your mother and the gifts from your father. But she's confident in who she is and who she wants to be. Um, when they're talking about well, we're not gonna be able to get those doors open. I can't fit in there. She's like, I'm gonna need a ladder. Just that confidence that, all right, fine. If you guys are going to do it, I'm going to take care of it. Right? She's that same person.
Someone has to save our skins.
Exactly. She's the same person who grabs the blaster and shoots out the, vent. It's like, into the garbage chute, flyboy. Like, it's that same person. Confident, knows who she is, and really is putting herself on a path for leadership. Even if she doesn't realize it at that point. I think by the end of this, she realizes that she can make a difference now that she's seen the galaxy, she's seen the Empire, she's understanding the reality of the galaxy, that she's not just living on Alderaan in this utopia, this peaceful place. And so now she basically takes that confidence she has and wants to put it into action. And so, they just did a great job of portraying that of somebody who is young, who you can kind of see this potential, really putting that out there.
I just thought it was so funny that she kind of had like a soft spot for droids, and throughout the show she was always so nice to the droids, and she's like, they're kind of alive too. And then we see her in episode 4 just completely walk over Chewbacca.
I loved little Lola she had, and it kind of goes back to Rise of Skywalker, when she tells Rey, like, never underestimate a droid,
Right.
because she's had Lola from, like, I don't know, maybe day one. But yeah, I loved her so much, and Lola, and oh my gosh, like, words can't describe how perfect this little girl was in that role for me. She looked like Carrie Fisher. And like you guys all mentioned, did such an outstanding performance.
So, the discussion at this point is still kind of open between the executives and the cast and the crew about a possible season 2. So, is that something we want to see, or do we want to see this show just take this win and settle with it?
I want it. I want a second season.
I want to see more. I want to see more Vader.
Selfishly, I just want more Ewan McGregor, but also that was a short amount of time as to all of that time in between the days of Ben Kenobi in episode 4. So like it would be awesome to see some more of that. But if they don't, it's okay. but I'm still saying I want it.
Yeah, I would love to see more if the story is right. Kind of the same way of how I felt about the series in the first place. Of do I want it? Do I need it? I don't know. We'll see. Um, there's a part of me now that we do have that final tie-in with Qui-Gon and getting those lessons where I kind of, if we do a season 2, give me some ethereal mind story where he has to go through things kind of like, one of Yoda's kind of final arcs that he does on the Clone Wars of, the path of the dark side and all those kind of things, and figuring out how does one become one with the Force, more attuned with it. I think give me something different. Give me, some sort of piece that's really going to give Ewan another chance to just show his skill as an actor, and totally turn people's heads for, another thing of what Star Wars could be, where it really character driven and it's really just him, almost to an extent, and except for maybe the occasional going down Chalmers and getting a drink, because we all know that Obi-Wan loves his drinks. So, but that, I don't know, that personally for me, I think that would be something interesting to see.
Yeah, it would be kind of cool to have a season 2 and kind of have a different mirror between Anakin and Obi-Wan again, and have Obi-Wan kind of learning how to become a Force ghost and learning from his former master, and then we could have like Darth Vader like really learning the more dark side type Force side, and really learning more from Palpatine, because it would be great to have like Palpatine training Vader and learning about the kind of like history of the Sith. That would be cool. Like,
that would be
give me
cool.
some Darth Paragus flashbacks. Yeah. Like, that would be so cool.
I would love to see a series that follows the Sith like that. That would be really awesome.
See, I feel like they could even take, like Paul Kemp's Lords of the Sith book that really does dive into, Vader and after, Revenge of the Sith and these kind of things, and basically, Palpatine and Vader and some of the things that they go through. I think I'd want to see that separate though. I feel like the Vader Obi-Wan story is complete until they meet again on the Death Star. So I feel like you don't need to have them again in the same thing. It's kind of where I'm on this.
That's a good point, Chris. I kind of feel like the confrontation that they had, and, Obi-Wan kind of trying to walk away the better man and not give in to not only his failures, but his, like, deep fear of seeing Darth Vader terrorize the galaxy again. Yeah, I agree. We don't need to see these characters meet up again until the Death Star.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So Chris, like, what for you was the biggest add-in to the mythology and canon of the show? Was there something introduced that really interested you, or was there some type of callback that really was like a deep cut into lore that, me, Amanda, as kind of like casual Star Wars fans, like, wouldn't understand at all, that surprised you?
Um, I wouldn't necessarily say about deep cut, but I think the thing that they added in, and I kind of brought this up before, but the path. This underground network, this underground railroad, trying to get force sensitive users to safety. Jedi who escaped, and basically kind of building onto this story of Jedi who survived Order 66, but also the story about people who were force sensitive after that point, because that was another thing that really hasn't been addressed, I don't think, really, in Star Wars all that much. They've talked about like, oh, here's Jedi who've gotten away, like Quinlan Voss, or that was obviously brought up, and that's come up in other place before that. Okay, he survived Order 66, but I think the idea of the path, that there's this underground network trying to get people to safety, trying to keep that part of society alive, really, to me, I really enjoyed seeing that. It doesn't take anything away of Luke and everybody always, says like, well, Luke is supposed to be the last hope and all that. Well, yeah, he is. He's the one who's going to bring balance. That's different. But I think just learning more about that side of things and really kind of the beginning of the rebellion as that, because the rebellion isn't even an idea yet at this point, really. Yes, there was the deleted scene in Revenge of the Sith that, take that as canon or not, but really there's not much going on. But this kind of thing I really liked. I guess kind of his deep cut too of something that kind of added to the story was seeing Tara Sinube, unfortunately dead in the caverns of the Inquisitors base there of Fortress Inquisitorius, because he has one of those stories in the Clone Wars that I particularly like the most of the lost lightsaber. And I actually have a quote of his on my desk, actually in my classroom, and it's the very, very end of that episode where he basically tells, okay, now that you have learned this, go and tell the Padawans, go and teach, right? The idea that, okay, something, now go and teach that to other people so they can know about it too. So, seeing him dead was kind of awe moment, like, no, why? But, like a Jedi, you have to let things go and, can't have attachment. But, that was something for me there.
So, Marshall, we're going to see Hayden Christensen come back in the Ahsoka series.
Mm-hmm.
So, are you hoping for kind of like flashbacks to like an era when they originally met? Or are you hoping for an older Ahsoka and an older Darth Vader kind of confrontation?
To be honest, I don't know much about Ahsoka. So I'm very excited to watch the series. I've actually never seen all of the Clone Wars series. So that's something on my list that I now really need to watch.
Agreed. Yes.
I due to certain things in my life, I stepped away from Star Wars for a long time. And it wasn't as prominent in my life as one of my many fandoms. But this Obi-Wan series has definitely resurged that for me, so I do plan on watching like the animated Clone Wars and things like that, and learning about these characters that I don't know anything about. So for me, I would love to see flashbacks of them meeting and stuff, and then also getting to see what it's like now for her. So I'll take either, because I'm still learning about other Jedi in the world of Star Wars.
Yeah, I think to kind of piggyback on that, I think for me, I almost would rather see Anakin as a Force ghost, helping his old Padawan the same way that Qui-Gon's helping Obi-Wan now.
Ooh.
And so adding more credence to that Force ghost Anakin at the end of, Return of the Jedi. Now here is, because we have Ahsoka, the white at the, as people call her, at the end of Rebels, and she's become this otherworldly, non-Jedi almost. Are there things that Anakin, this Sith Lord who redeemed himself, can teach her about balance in the Force? And even if it's just something small like that, I'd be very happy. But since they put him, de-aged him somewhat in this series for pre Attack of the Clones, I think they could definitely put him in Clone Wars era with Ahsoka. But I'd really like to almost see him as like a Force ghost version. I think that'd be cool.
So, do you want the Ahsoka series to kind of like retcon anything in Clone Wars or revisit anything in Clone Wars, or are you satisfied with Clone Wars and you just want to see like a new type of relationship develop? Yeah, you want to see the Force ghosts and
Yeah,
like
yeah.
Anakin
I think
redeemed after redemption.
yeah, I think their story in Clone Wars. I mean, because it ends really, beautifully. Ahsoka leaves the Order. She does come back for this one final thing, and there's this little bit of a connection, but then the next time that she sees him, he's Darth Vader. The next time that they confront each other, it's in Rebels, and she realizes what happened to her master, and for her to see what becomes of him after that point, that redemption, I think is important for her. And I would like to see more of that, because it even adds maybe a little bit to the, line in, Book of Boba Fett, where she says to Luke, you remind me of your father. And where those kind of things come into play too, because, I think I'd like to see where their relationship goes from here. Sorry for my dogs fighting in the background here, but yeah.
Is that a Wookiee?
I know. I wish they're cuter.
You really need to stop podcasting from the Rancor pit, Chris.
Yeah, I know.
So any final thoughts we'd like to share on this series before we call it a day here?
I think we need to discuss the fact that we got Qui-Gon at the end.
Yes.
Was anybody else sobbing hysterically when we finally saw Liam Neeson on the screen?
Oh, Mike was. He's not going to admit it.
I really respect Liam Neeson as an actor, like coming back just for like that little snippet, because he was having a lot of fun with us. He was pulling an Andrew Garfield, and he's like, "Oh, I'm just above TV. I'm more of a direct to DVD guy now. I'm more of a movie guy." And he came back just for a little bit, just to bring things full circle, and yeah, it was great.
Yeah, I immediately texted my brother, because you and my brother just had a conversation too, and my brother was like, "I loved Qui-Gon and all this," so I was like, "Man, Qui-Gon's back!" So he loved that. I really too just wanted to bring up the end fight in episode 6, like, again, how
Yeah.
I was saying, Anakin and James Earl Jones, their voices intermingling when Obi-Wan takes down Vader. I mean, I just love that when he busts open the helmet and it's like you see Hayden's like eyeball poking out, and I got goosebumps from that whole entire scene. I don't know about you guys.
The thing with that fight for me, it's just so much of their relationship of Obi-Wan and Anakin. Always the learner, never the master. As much as he thinks that he hasn't beat, he really doesn't. And he never beats Obi-Wan. Even in episode 4, he doesn't beat Obi-Wan, even though he kills him. He doesn't beat him.
He doesn't. Obi-Wan lets it happen.
Exactly. And so the thing with that fight is, at the end, the split mask, the split voices, it's Anakin and Vader. It's Anakin struggling with who he is, but yet at the same time acknowledging, you didn't kill Anakin, I did. The emotional beats of all of that were just perfect. That adding to the line of, he betrayed and murdered your father. I was fine with how he described it, from a certain point of view, and all that kind of stuff. I was fine, but having him particularly say it, I think just added more to it and just adds to that. And yeah, it was great to see.
Yeah. So again, revisiting this series, if you were to marathon Star Wars again, would you watch it immediately after? Like, what order how do we watch the Star Wars movies now with these new series injecting new canon into it? Like,
so would it be 1, 2, and 3, then Obi-Wan, and then Rogue One and Solo are in there?
So this is about the same time as Solo is taking
Is
place.
it?
Yeah,
Okay.
because Solo is about 10 years after Fall of the Empire. So this and Solo are happening right about at the same time.
Okay. So Obi-Wan and Solo, and then Rogue One. And I know there are some other Star Wars series, but I have not watched them. I honestly could not get into The Mandalorian, and it's upsetting.
I really enjoyed this over The Mandalorian. Like, I will take baby Leia any day over
over
Grogu.
Baby
I
Yoda.
love Grogu, but I loved this little Leia. She stole the show for me. The whole
She was
Disney
amazing.
Plus series, like her and
You give me
Reva.
stories about her growing up.
Mm-hmm.
Highly
Yeah, like
recommend
her
it.
and Reva were my favorite characters in any of these Star Wars Disney Plus shows.
So yeah, I mean, obviously, it's always nice to see things, but highly recommend reading Princess Leia, Princess of Alderaan, by E.K. Johnson. Phenomenal book. Talks about kind of her growing up on Alderaan and kind of taking on that role. So if you're looking for something to bridge this in episode 4, read that book. It's a really, really good book.
Okay.
Interesting. Okay.
Well, Marshall and Chris, thank you so much for coming on board and discussing Obi-Wan Kenobi with us. We had a wonderful time, and we look forward to having you on again.
No, thanks
Yeah,
for
next
having me.
week,
Anytime, y'all.
Yeah.
of course. Next week, we are having a very fun episode. We're going back to the whole upside down world of Stranger Things. So you don't want to miss out on that. And we will talk to you guys then.